Hello everybody. We're going to be working on some zipper samples, and you're going to need your 2 4x9 samples of fabric and the basic zipper that I suggested that you purchase. This one is a 7-inch zipper, so it leaves us a little room at the top and the bottom so that we can look at how it would be inserted in a garment. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to take your 2 pieces of fabric and you're going to put the right sides together because we want the zipper to be on the inside of our garment. We don't want any part of it to show on the outside. And then you're going to sew a seam. The zipper is going to be left open. So when you sew the seam, what you're doing right here is going to be called basting. So you want to lengthen your seam length to about 4, and you do not want to backstitch at the top and the bottom of where the zipper opening is, because we're going to take that thread out later so that you can open your zipper. So the first thing that you want to do is set your zipper down on the fabric and look at where the zipper ends. This area here is the bottom of the zipper. So we're going to put a little mark there. I'm just going to draw a line. So this seam is going to be a basted seam. Then you're going to come back, and from here down, you're going to sew a permanent seam. So again, you're going to shorten your stitch length to like 2.5 or 3, and you would backstitch at the top and the bottom in order to make this stay secure. So this part we're basting and removing. This part is a complete seam that would be, if this was a skirt, it would be much longer, or if it was a pair of pants, it would be flowing into the curve toward the leg. So sew that basting and then sew the permanent seam. On the basting, leave tails hanging, tails of threads hanging out the top and the bottom so that it will make it easy for you to remove. But this seam, you can clip the threads. And it might be a good idea to also make your seam a little bit bigger than the 5/8 that we've been stitching, because you're new to sewing this type of application. I would say you want to go anywhere from 3/4 to 1 inch in your seam allowance, because you won't have enough if you only have 5/8 inch. So go ahead and sew that seam, and then what you want to do is press it open. So you should be able to see here that I have sewn much larger stitch length, and nothing is backstitched at the top or the bottom. And then the part below the zipper is a complete seam that's been backstitched at both ends. So we want to press this open, and then I will be showing you how to sew the zipper in. So you may want to take a moment before you continue with zippers and make sure that you've read the chapters on zippers. It's chapter 12. It starts on page 178. There's language that's part of how we describe what we're doing. And going forward, especially if I need to do some additional assistance individually, you're going to need to be able to understand what I'm talking about. So I want you to look at the information regarding zippers. This type of zipper is called a conventional zipper, and we will be inserting it in a method that's called railroaded. And then we also need to talk about the sewing machine and the zipper feed. If you have your own sewing machine, you most likely have something that might look like this. This would attach to your sewing machine where your other foot is, and this little lever in the back allows us to slide the zipper foot back and forth so that we can position it where we need it to be on the fabric. So your zipper would be in this location, and where do we want our needle to hit? Well, somewhere around here. So do I want the foot to be here or here? This allows you to make that adjustment. Other sewing machines that have the clip-on and off feet, your zipper foot will look like this. And so you really only have 2 choices of where that will be placed. If you're using the sewing machine from school that you borrowed, unfortunately, I do not have a zipper foot for that machine. that I can give you right now. So we're going to try to do the zipper with the conventional foot that's on the sewing machine by placing the feet of the zipper next to the feet of the sewing machine next. Basically, it's going to ride next to the coil of the zipper. But what we're going to do is we're going to put the needle into a position that is over in this area right here. So you'll be adjusting the needle position, and then you'll be able to sew close to where you need to sew on the zipper. So it's going to be up to you what foot you use based on the sewing machine that you have. If needed, you can take a picture of what you have and send it to me so we can discuss the best way for you to handle putting a zipper in. So this application is what's called a railroaded zipper. And you're going to open your zipper and you're going to align the teeth right on that seam that you already sewed and pin it in place. You want to bring the zipper up close to the top, but you don't want to extend it over the top, because this is where you're going to have a seam line, like right along here. If it was pants or a skirt, there would be a waistband. And so we want to make sure that we leave that 5/8 inch seam open. The zipper is going to zip up to this little stop that's at the top. And when the zipper head, which is this thing right here, reaches those two metal teeth, it's going to stop. So we want to make sure that we're using the top of the zipper tape here to be embedded in the seam. If I have it down too far, I would have a gap in the opening of the zipper between my waistband and the zipper. So you're going to bring it really pretty close to that upper edge. And I'm just going to pin it in place with a couple of pins just to hold it. So maybe 3. And 1 near the bottom. And you're going to sew and backstitch the top because it is permanent. We're going to sew and we're going to come down. And when we get to a certain point, like right about here, most likely I will stop and lift my presser foot, and I will zip the zipper up so that I can go beyond it and go across the bottom and back up. So start with the zipper in the open position, but keep in mind that you will be stopping. When you stop, you're going to want to stop with the needle in the down position so that you don't accidentally pull it out from underneath what you're stitching. So I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and I'm going to begin to sew the zipper. So here we are at the sewing machine. Our zipper's been pinned in place. Just as a final double check, make sure you have the tails from the basting hanging out the top and that you don't catch them. If your tails are hanging out at the bottom, you might have switched your sample around. We want the temporary stitching to be here, and we want the permanent stitching below the zipper. So you can see here that I have the tails hanging out this way. So that tells me that between here and here is my basting stitch. So I'm going to try to sew this with a regular foot, which normally I would not do a zipper, but for those students that have the machine from school, we want to make sure that you're able to sew the zipper in. So I'm going to just like hand crank it down to see where the needle is. I might need to move it a little, and you'll have to check on your machine where your stitch width button is, but I'm going to move mine over. Let's see. Now my zipper, my needle popped over to the other side. You normally want your zipper stitched about 1/4 inch away from the edge of the teeth. And you can see from this measurement that 1/4 inch is right here. This would be 3/8 of an inch, so it would be too far over. You don't want to be right on the edge of the tape. You want to be somewhere in this area right here. So we're going to try this. Since everybody has something different, you're going to have to make adjustments on your machine to get the results that you want. Look at your stitch length, and it most likely would look best somewhere around 3. If you have an electronic machine and you turn it on and it always defaults to 2.2, 2.2 is a pretty tight stitch, especially for beginners, because if you make mistakes, it's harder to take it out. So I would work somewhere between 2.8 and 3. So when I start to sew my zipper, I am going to backstitch. And I'm just going to run it along the teeth and just keep going down. When I get closer to the area where the foot is, or I mean the zipper head, I want to drop my needle to the down position. That will ensure that when you raise your presser foot, you're not going to accidentally pull your stitching out from under and then wind up with like a crooked row of stitching. So I'm going to take all my pins out. I'm going to zip the zipper up to the top, and then I'm going to drop it back down, and I'm going to continue down to the bottom of the zipper. You want to make sure you go past this safety stop because you don't want to hit it with your needle. So I'm going to go slow. So I'm 1 stitch past. You want to stop with your needle in the down position. If you don't have an option on your machine to have the needle stop in the down position all the time, then you can just turn the hand crank until it's down, and you turn that towards you. Then you're going to come straight across to the other side. It might be a little difficult. You might have to kind of guide it because your foot's going over that zipper stop, and you don't want to have it push your zipper foot off of the zipper. So then we're just going to continue up the other side. And sometimes when you get to the top, it's going to be difficult to navigate around the zipper head. You sort of have to push this over, or you can break open your stitching on the front here, and you can try to unzip the zipper. This is not my favorite zipper application, so it's probably going to be a little rough at the top, but that's going to get covered up when we would add a waistband to the skirt or the facing to a dress. So when you're clipping threads now, be careful that you don't clip the one we need to pull out. Only clip off the threads that are the new threads that we use to stitch the zipper. And so if you flip it over to the other side, you're going to see that this looks pretty good. Looks good at the bottom. It came over a little bit. It's a little crooked, but overall, I'd say that this is passable. You're not going to get your zipper perfect the first time. It's some new thing that you're learning. You may have to do that more than once. So you might have to pull the zipper out and do it a second time. So then what we want to do is we want to remove the basting stitch. And if you pull your tail that's on the whichever side would have been the bobbin side, you'll just have to pull and see what happens. And then I'm just going to continue to pull it, see if I can get it to come out. Oh shoot, it broke off. Try pulling the one that's down here. Sometimes that happens that they break, but you can see if I pull now here at the top, I've opened it a little bit, it's open a little bit here, and you can just take your seam ripper and pull the threads until you get it out. So this is why you wanted to have a longer stitch length, because this would be very tedious if it was tightly sewn. So this is what's called basting. So basting is temporary stitching. I'm going to pull this all out, and you'll see that so I can pull the threads loose. You don't want to leave these hanging because they'll get caught in the zipper and jam your zipper, possibly break it, and then you're starting over again. So now that you know how to do a zipper, you might be able to repair something that needs a zipper replaced. So you want to go all the way down and remove all that basting. So I'm just going to do it real quick here. Be careful when you're using a seam ripper in this fashion because you can tear your fabric. You want to make sure you're only, so I'm lifting up on it so that I can feel it grabbing the threads and not the fabric. Sometimes it pulls out pretty easy. Sometimes it doesn't. My machine is very efficient at sewing a nice tight seam, no matter what I do, and making it more difficult for me to pull it out. So here we go. Here's our zipper sample. You can open and close your zipper. This should be permanently stitched below the zipper. So this would be like at the neckline of a dress, and a skirt on the side or the back, a pair of pants in the back. This is not what you would use for blue jeans. That's a whole different application that requires extra pieces of fabric. So this is your first zipper, so congratulations.